Hey, I'm Joe Tunstall. I'm a personal injury attorney, and I get calls all the time from our clients about how to read their deck page. What does this mean for insurance? So let me start with this. Deck page is a declarations page. It is your personal auto amount of insurance that you have. And so I have a redacted one up here that has a lot of different stuff in it. And I want to talk a little bit about what this means and what, if you are dealing with a case, is helpful, and also what you can do that is that's not listed here that would be very helpful. So big pieces here is the first thing that we see. Let's see if it'll let me. See if it will let me highlight. All right. So let's talk a little bit about automobile insurance. So what do most of us want? So the first thing we want is as much coverage as we can get, and we want to spend as little money as possible. That sounds kind of rough, but it's pretty accurate. Most of the time what we want is if we're involved in an automobile collision, we want, without any question, to have our family and ourselves protected. Period. That's what we want. The second thing we want is that we don't want to be sued by somebody like me and lose everything we own. So a couple of different pieces are important when we're looking at this. The first is I picked one that has two different vehicles in the same household. So one spouse drives this Ford Explorer, the other one drives this Toyota Prius. And they have similar bodily injury limits. So let me take 2 seconds to explain this. Bodily injury is if you cause the wreck, or someone driving your vehicle causes the wreck, or someone living in your household related to you by blood or marriage causes the wreck, then this amount right here, this $250 each person, $500,000 each accident, is the full amount that can be paid on your behalf. So why does it say $250, $500? Well, it says $250, $500 because if there are 5 people in the car, no one person can take more than $250,000. The second part is if there are 5 people in the car, then even if each of them is seriously hurt, the maximum that can be paid out is $500,000. Now, I grabbed this one for a couple reasons. One, because there's decent coverage here. This is a pretty good policy. And you'll notice that the premium, or what they pay for the bodily injury here, is $77 a month, right? So this looks like a month-to-month policy. The second thing, well, let's stay here for just a second. So the biggest money, if you look down all these policies, all these different pieces they've added, the biggest expense here, right, is the liability coverage. So one of the things we talk to folks about is, look, if you want really good coverage, but you don't want to pay as much money, then you get the minimum bodily injury coverage that you can get, and then you add an umbrella policy. An umbrella policy is a policy that covers everything outside of what's inside of like a auto policy or a homeowner's policy. It pays on top of those things. And the cost of a North Carolina umbrella policy is usually pretty low. Last time I checked it, I think it was like $200 a year for about $1 million worth of coverage. Maybe I'm off by $50 or $100, but somewhere right in that range. I know I pay less than $500 a year for $5 million in umbrella coverage. So that's on top of this coverage. So let's say over here you want to get this number to be as low as you can while you're continuing to increase this number, right? This is your uninsured motorist injury. So what does that mean? That means if the person who hits you has the minimum limits in North Carolina, which is $30,000, and you can still recover up until $250,000 per each person, right? And why is that important? Well, anybody who's been to the emergency room and had to stay overnight knows that you can eat through $30,000 extremely quickly. We often have clients whose one visit to the ER is greater than greater than $30,000. So you want an amount greater than that. What's the other good part about this policy? Well, the other good part about this policy is that, did you notice this amount is less than this amount? So 70 is less than 77. Well, here's the other thing. We come down here, here's the second car. Again, we got to pay another $71. So we're paying 77 up here and 71 down here. There's no additional cost for that UM/UIM. So again, it is cheaper to protect ourselves, right, than it is to protect other folks in the case. So that's something to look at. Here's the other thing. You got a 2013 Ford Explorer, and they've got collision and other than collision. And again, they're paying more than the $77 for this. So if you got a car that's 15 years old and you're still paying collision on it, you need to think about whether you want to do that or not, because you're paying a pretty daggone good amount of money to repair a vehicle that you might be better off not repairing. I'll just kind of leave it right there. So that's kind of an individual decision. Other than collision, which would mean something, for example, where collision would be something running into something. Other than collision, can cover things like your windshield, right? So again, these are all good coverages. Towing and labor. So if they tow your vehicle up to $100 per disablement, $3. That's probably a pretty good one. Rental, which I don't see on here, is another good one. These are all really good pieces to have. Uninsured motorist property damage. So if the person who hits you doesn't have a vehicle at all, doesn't have any insurance at all, it only costs you $3 to have up to $100,000 of additional property damage. But here's down here, if you're the one that causes the problem, or you run into a tree or a deer, and you need your car fixed, you gotta pay the first $1,000, and then it's going to cost you basically almost as much as your liability insurance to keep that on the vehicle. And again, this isn't a one-time thing. It's a per vehicle cost down here, right? So again, those are the kind of things you got to look at. Another good thing when you're here in North Carolina on here is medical payments. Look how cheap this is, $5 a month. Now, what does this $1,000 for $5 do? Well, let's say you run into a tree in your yard and you get hurt. That medical payments would come in and help pay part of your deductible. Let's say you're not at fault. Again, that $5 will help pay part of your deductible. Let's say you are at fault. That $5 will give you $1,000 towards your deductible. But that $5 is pretty cheap. My suggestion always is to carry whatever the amount of your deductible is in MedPay. So let's say you got an $8,000 per year MedPay, get $10,000 worth of med payments. That $5, and it's not a dollar for dollar increase, but even if it was, let's say you got to multiply it times 10 and it's $50, right? Probably wouldn't pay 50, but I'd probably pay 15 or 20 for it. And these are the kind of things you need to look at in your deck page. You need to make sure that these pieces are set out for you. So I did not mean to spend 9 minutes going over this information, but I hope this helps to kind of wrap this up and make this make sense. When you're getting your insurance, take the time to negotiate and talk to the underwriter a little bit, or have your agent do it on your behalf. You want to spend as little as possible as you can on this bodily injury. But make sure this is clear. You need to then protect yourself with something like an umbrella policy on top of that. So if we could get this down to $50,000 per person, $100,000 for each accident, this premium would come down pretty significantly. But then you still want $250,000 worth of UM/UIM, or uninsured, underinsured motorist bodily injury. I'd probably make the med pay limit go up a little bit. It probably wouldn't cost you, it'd probably be around $20. But that would be your deductible. And then you've got to make your own decision on these collision. If I have a brand new vehicle, I totally have collision. If I've got this point, what is this, a 2013, so a 10-year-old vehicle, I'm going to be thinking about it. I'm certainly going to really be making my mind up on that. So again, I don't sell insurance. We represent people who've been injured. My name is Joe Tunstall at O'Malley Tunstall. We're here representing people throughout North Carolina. Thank you.